and welcome. In today's video, we're going to be discussing grief, how it's formed, how it's stored, and what you can do very simply to release it from the body. So, welcome. My name is Monica. This is a place for learning, and clearly, we are on a kick of well-being and how to diagnose or self-diagnose certain things and what we can do about them. You can find me on TikTok, Instagram, Patreon. We're running a series right now on how to find your perfect mate in 30 days. And yeah, we're going into week 2. So, well, it's like self-paced, but you do what you want. I'll upload it once a week. And yes, I'm selling natural healing books, spiritual books, occult books, strange books on my Etsy. So go see my Etsy, Guru Grit Astrology. And if you'd like to book a reading, gurugrit.com. Okay, so speaking of readings, grief can be found like other ailments or things that cause people discomfort in one's birth chart. All right. So I've actually happened upon this book. I'm not selling it, but I do enjoy it. Soul, Mind, Body Science by Dr. Ji Gang Shah, who apparently also authored Power Healing. But in any case, there's a little blip here about grief and sadness. And I thought, I should probably talk about that because I can really relate. I am someone who stores pain very easily, and I have a very good memory, and it's triggered by emotion, so I can recall. I have incredible recall, which is why a lot of times clients are like, "Can't believe you remember that," or "How do you remember a chart without like having cast it in like 2 years?" I can remember certain things because they evoke something from me. And so, one of the things you can do when you look at a birth chart is basically you can see how much sadness and grief a certain person can withstand or emotionally endure in a lifetime. And that's basically going to be found by malefics in the fourth house. Okay, the fourth house is your happiness, it's your home, it's your mother, it's where we pool things, where things are stored. Okay, because you keep things in your home. Okay, I've got lots of books here and there. Okay, so I keep my things here. It's where I live, it's my residence. Okay, so where things pool, and unfortunately, if it's like a home, it can be, problems in the home, in the family. And in some cases, because it does govern happiness, it also governs the past. So things like heritage or, family history or cultural heritage, etc. And when it's marred by a malefic, there's a malefic influence there, then clearly we can remember a lot of things, or we could have had a hard childhood. Okay, but what this does is it affects the body. So it depends on the malefic. They're all different, but this is very particular to Saturn in the fourth house. I think I do have a YouTube video about serial killers in serial killers in astrology. I think I have one too many things in common with a lot of them. But you will see Saturn in the fourth house a lot of the time. They had a very strange relationship to the mother, for example. Okay, so Saturn is the planet of karma, time, desolation, despair, death, disease, poverty, challenges. It's very challenging. So when you take the harshest planet and put it in the most tender and soft house, that person is basically behind the 8 ball from birth in terms of certain emotional and mental things. Okay, they're generally considered emotionally malnourished or neglected, and it's not necessarily um, intentional. So a lot of the time you'll see this in immigrant children. Like their parents love them, they did the best they could, but they were busy, they were working like 2 3 jobs, or they were struggling financially, they couldn't give you what you wanted as a child, but they did it out of love to give you a better, long-term outcome or something. So Saturn, you have to remember, suppresses things. He's very depressing. So like just like the first house, when he's in the fourth, it's much more felt. It's still horrible. It could be very touchy in the first, right? But he's a planet of limitations. People feel like there's a cap on their happiness, okay? And there's an endless supply of sadness when it's in the fourth. So he tends to just give a natural, critical um, discernment, like a tendency to see through things, okay? So this would also translate to melancholia, easily depressed, easy to feel down, kind of like a wet blanket. Like if you're like, oh, do you want to go out to a picnic? You're like, a picnic? Like I'm going to sit on the hard ground. It's going to cost a lot of money. I always cook my own food. People bring garbage. Then I got to find parking. Then bugs are going to bite me. And then I might run into my ex. Okay, it's not that they don't want to go on the picnic. They were just like hyper aware of what it takes to actually get there, you know? So sometimes they have to learn to loosen up and have fun. But what happens is obviously over the span of one's lifetime, these habits, okay, these thoughts, they tend to store. They tend to build up. And then before you know it, you're like kind of a grumpy teenager or a curmudgeon in like your 20s or your 30s. So, where does it store? So, that's the question. So, the fourth house is the chest and specifically our lungs. Okay, so in Ayurveda, grief is stored in the lungs. And according to this book by Dr. Shah, grief is also stored in the lungs in Chinese traditional medicine. So, if you have Saturn in the fourth house, you'd find this incredibly effective. I have Saturn in the fourth house. Actually, one of the good things, it can make you a good teacher. It can make you very good at giving advice. Okay, the fourth house is counselors, like therapists, and Saturn is wisdom, but it's not what you do, it's how you do it. So I've had to learn to curb my impulse. I'm very impulsive, my instinct to just say what my opinion is and give my opinion when asked. I've had to still give the same opinion more tenderly. Okay, it's kind of like the friend that has a lot of candor and they're just like, they're like, he cheated on you. You're dumb if you forgive him. He's going to do it again. And then she's like crying because he did it again. It's like she needs a hug. She doesn't need you to berate her. Even like I've just had to learn to like tone it down. So, grief and sadness. Westerner thinks of the lungs primarily as a respiratory organ. In traditional Chinese medicine, the lungs are connected with body qi and respiratory qi and the nose. Okay, I've got some breathe right strips on my nightstand, so that's telling you quite a lot about me. A sad, sad girl. The lungs also assist in water metabolism and are associated with emotions of grief and sadness. So think of a sigh. Those who follow Eastern spiritual practices know the lungs to be part of the body that belongs to heaven, capital H. Soul mind body science considers grief and sadness energies to blockage in the lungs. Losing someone you love can make you so sad that your lungs become blocked. When the lungs are blocked, it is easy to catch a cold, tire quickly, and even be more susceptible to sadness. So it's just like a circle. It's a cycle. You just never break. It just goes around and around. The healing solution for grief and sadness is to remove the energy and blockage in the lungs. So we're going to do a simple technique today. I also want to mention what causes the grief. So I gave an astrological um, example, and I said if you have other malefics, it could look different. Okay, like Mars or Rahu, Ketu, such. Okay. However, and obviously there's combination like Saturn Moon, Mars Moon. Okay, Mars Venus. Okay, these are different, but in any case, I have found in the modern world that we live in now, it's 2025, I feel my generation and the generation beneath or just under us has what I like to think of as preemptive grief or anticipatory grief. I feel that people aren't sad now because they've lost something. I feel a lot of the times when I speak to my clients and I talk to my friends, I meet new people, it's like they're sad in advance. They're sad not because they've lost something, they're sad because they never had it. Okay, so I've never really experienced that before, but I guess we're all on this ride together. We're figuring it out as we go along. For example, people will be sad that they have to downsize because their kids have moved out. Now I feel that people in their 30s and 40s are sad because they never got the opportunity to get on the property ladder. People used to be sad because they're getting divorced. Now I feel people are sad because they never even had a chance at marriage. Okay. Some people are sad because their kids grow up and leave the nest. Now I feel like people are sad because they're not meeting partners and they're not having children. Okay. So it's like you're grieving a life you thought you would have, you don't have. Okay. So it's very, very painful because your mind doesn't know the difference. So it definitely does affect the body, you know? So, this is an exercise I used to do very often in my early to mid 20s. I worked probably in one of the worst places you could work in the world. I'm not going to say, but the bullying was insane. It was crazy. I'm just going to say there was a lot of nurses there. Okay. It was really like pure evil. Okay. I had a horrible manager for at the beginning there. Horrible people, just awful. And, I would do breathing exercises and mental exercises when I would escape to the bathroom to stop myself from like going crazy or like crying out of rage or crying out of hopelessness that I was just thought I'd be like stuck there. Um, so different organs in traditional Chinese medicine correspond to different sounds. So what you could do is like visualize that you're inhaling a white light to clear out an organ. So for me, I would always do the liver because I was trying to suppress my anger. And then I would imagine like you'd breathe in the white energy and then make the sound of the liver, and you would push it out with your hands and like mentally visualize gray or black energy leaving the liver. We'll discuss more on the liver in a second, but let's do the lungs. So say you're trying to release deep sadness, heartbreak, grief, sorrow, lingering anxiety and confusion that leads to a lot of sadness, concepts that are just bummers. They're just low, they don't help you. It says chant the number 3, pronounced San, Sahn. Sun in Chinese. The number 9, pronounced Zhou, Joe, in Chinese. Sun vibrates the cells of the lungs and chest. Zhou vibrates the cells of the lower abdomen. Put them together and repeatedly chant Sun Zhou, Sun Zhou. Chanting Sun Zhou helps transfer energy from the lungs to the lower abdomen. Chant out loud or silently as quickly as you can. Okay, so you can incorporate obviously breath and visualization, but the point is to just shake it loose and get it out. Okay, so that being said, obviously there's things that you can do to minimize the effect of grief and sadness when you look at a birth chart. Okay, so some malefics in particular disagree with smoke. So if you have them in the 4th house and you find yourself like moody, emotionally unstable, things like that, you should not be reaching for cigarettes. You should not be reaching for vape. You should not be reaching for marijuana, medicinal or otherwise, because it's affecting your lungs and it's affecting that emotional state, keeping you stuck there longer and longer. Other things that I would add to that, especially if Mars is involved in some way, is endocrine disruptors. Okay, so irritants like, okay, that's cheap candle, but let's say like mass produced fragrance candles. Okay, those are not good for the lungs. Pollutants are not good for the lungs. Okay, so um, air fresheners and things like this. Okay, so they could actually be adding to your internal disharmony, even though you think you're doing it to make yourself feel better. Depending on the chart, you can see who's just not for that. Okay, so I was mentioning, I'll come back to the liver. One other thing I'd like to add is when he was mentioning the breathing into the lungs and then going into the lower abdomen, things are connected. Like your body is its own universe. Okay, it's more than just a singular entity. It's entities within entities within entities, caged in this fleshy prison. Okay, prison's a harsh word, but you understand my meaning. So basically, if you're angry, you would work with the liver. But I would never exclude the kidneys. Kidneys hold fear, liver holds anger. Okay, so when I see people who have road rage that I know very well, I always know, like, I know them, like, I know them very well, like family. I've known them for like 10, 15 plus years. Okay, God, they love large portions of food. They don't eat moderately, they eat extremely. Greasy things, fried things, a lot of carbs, heavy things that overload the liver, a lot of processed foods, a lot of spicy foods, and definitely a lot of alcohol. Okay, so it's very normal that these things irritate the liver, and they're basically angry. Okay, so you have to release anger, and in astrology, another thing that can help with that is looking at the 2nd house. Like I've noticed, Mars in the 2nd house people, if they don't express anger very in a very clear, healthy manner, they will repress it. Remember that the 2nd house is the lower jaw. Okay, so it's anything that goes into or comes out of the mouth. So I found with certain malefics in the 2nd house will manifest in different ways. Mars usually interrupts speech, like a stammer, a stutter. People go speech therapy when they're little, or elocution lessons or something like this. But it can make a person very explosive or just generally have very harsh speech. And they can also develop oral fixations like nail biting, jaw grinding, teeth grinding and tapping. Okay, smoking, over or under eating. It's about control of this area, and it's actually coming from here. It's coming from the liver. So you wouldn't think it has a connection, but it does. When you see the chart, it makes sense. Okay, so another thing then, there's anger here, but anger is like it's like a symptom. Okay, kidneys store fear. Okay, anger is not an empowered state of being for a long period of time. It has bursts of usefulness. Okay, if you're trying to get out of a hopeless situation, like if you're living with an abusive person, in a moment of anger, you escape. Okay, but you're not supposed to stay angry. You used anger to get out. Now you're supposed to keep climbing and feeling better and better gradually over time. So this is where we have to address the kidneys. The kidneys store fear. So I would definitely look up, what are the sounds for releasing anger from the liver? What can I take for the liver? Omega 3s like fish oil if you're vegan, flaxseed oil is high in omega 3s. It's plant based, obviously. Um, Dandelion, okay, that's kidneys. But anytime I do something with the kidneys, I always include the liver and vice versa. And gallbladder, I take it to the neck, and pancreas. I just like group them because they work harmoniously together. So if one is down in my mind, the others have to compensate. Okay, milk thistle. Okay, very, very good. So anyway, look up the sounds and do the breathing exercises to release fear. And if you want to physically, as you exhale, like if you inhale, you think of the white light, you think of the sound, and then you make the sound, you chant the sound as you push it out of your body and see if it makes you feel better. So give it a try. Try it for, 3 weeks or 30, 40 days. 40 days seems to be kind of like a magical number. Give it a go. And then, yes, of course, check out my Etsy for my books. I've got a lot of a lot of Edgar Casey books, and this month it is August the 3rd. So this month I'm giving away 13 free books. So if you buy a book on healing, if you want like a similar one, I'll go into my library and find something on that theme, a relationship book, a dating book. I'll hook you up, okay? So yeah, let me know if you have, so yeah. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm gonna do another video coming up next. I got more questions. People want to follow up. I did a video regarding Edgar Casey remedies in regards to balding and remedies for balding. And I included some spiritual things in there. But speaking of the kidneys, this is linked to hair loss. So in my next video, I will address premature balding and how my aunt and I were watching TV 3 years ago, 3 years ago, and she just said, I've never seen so many young bald men before. Like, this didn't happen when we were your age. Like, I don't know what's going on. And I was like, oh, but I do. So I'm going to tell you it's a spiritual problem. Anyways, yes, I don't know what they're pumping in the school milk these days, but men and women, it's not just men. So anyways, you can go and find the other video on balding, but I'll make an updated one that includes more behind the scenes, less practical things, like practical meaning physical things that you like, you make a poultice, you smash some onions, apply it to your head, wrap it, like spiritual, mental causes, like what's actually causing it en masse in Western society now. So we're going to talk about that. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, you can get readings on gurugrit.com. Books are on Etsy. I know it's a little bit confusing, but I've had to kind of split them up. I took my readings off of Etsy just because the fees were so high and I didn't have it in me to charge so much. So I feel like, yeah, just couldn't do it. So anyways, let me know if you have any other questions. Apart from that, we're moving forward with the 30 Days to Find Your Perfect Mate on Patreon. And we're going to do something regarding finances, hopefully before the month is out. If I have the energy, I'm just like overrun. But thank you so much. And I'll see you on TikTok lives. I'll be announcing before I go live on my Instagram lives. Okay, so from now on, I've been requested to do that because I got in trouble yesterday. A few people were like, I keep missing these because you don't tell anyone. I'm like, no, I just go like when I feel like going. But good point. I'll announce it from now on. My bad. I'll see you all there. I love you and bye for now. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Okay.